Hello everyone and welcome to this first tutorial video on how to update project location information for protected areas in KfW and GIZ. My name is Johannes Schielein and I work for the Department for Innovation, Digitalization and Communication in KfW Development Bank. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you have any further questions, we will give you the opportunity to get in touch at the end of the presentation. What are the contents of today's video? Well, first we will give you a short introduction with general information on the project location model and protected areas. What is the model, how is data collected, and which information is mandatory? I will then give you a short how-to for different cases. And in the end, I will show you where you can find additional information. Okay, let's get started. So, what is the project location model? The project location model is an open data model to collect information on project locations in development cooperation. And it is an extension of the standards proposed by the International Aid Transparency Initiative. It is developed by KfW and its partners and is supposed to be used by the development community as an open standard. We adapted this model, which you can already see in the snapshot in Figure 1, to be better adapted to the protected areas case. And adaptations that we did were, for example, to make it aligned with IUCN standards, but also to be used in conjunction with the World Database on Protected Areas, and to collect some specific information on different criteria inside protected areas. So, as already said, we try to link our data collection to the World Database on Protected Areas, the WDPA. This is the most comprehensive global data set on protected areas. It's managed by IUCN and UNEP. It includes geospatial information about the PA boundaries, which you can see on the right, and other information such as size, management status, legal issues, and conservation objectives. And WDPA collaborates actually with national and regional authorities to gather and update this database. It is public access. You can see also the link in the subheader below or above, protectedplanet.net. And inside of this database, we have so-called WDPA IDs, which you can see encircled in red, and they serve as unique identifier for those areas. And using these identifiers makes it easy for us to be able to talk about the same area, because often protected areas might have similar names in the same country, and this can lead to confusion. So there are a lot of data quality controls from, of course, the national authorities and IUCN, but one should always check the data that is found on WDPA for consistency and to be up to date with the local data. How do we collect data in general? So we have our data model, which is provided in Excel, and most of the relevant information can be filled in there. In case the area is found on Protected Planet, you basically only have to use Excel. We estimate that around 80 to 90% of all of our areas can be found in Protected Planet, so most of the times this should be sufficient. If the area is, however, not registered there, or if it is outdated, you might need to provide additional information to Excel in a geo format, and we use KML in this case. And I will show you later how to link information from Excel to the KML as well. Regarding our data model, which information is mandatory, so we introduced here a 3-color scheme in order to make it easier for you to actually see when you have the table open which data is mandatory. So The columns that have a red header, for example, the project number or the WDPA ID, they are mandatory for all protected areas that are entered into the list. Then we have purple headers, for example, data owner or publishing restrictions, location name. They are mandatory if the PEAs, if the protected areas have no entry in the WDPA. And black headers are not mandatory, but we encourage you to report on those as well because they provide information that makes it easier to quality control the data, to communicate with you, or to report on project progress. So the additional geodata in KML format, as said, is only mandatory if the protected area has no registry or if the protected area boundaries are outdated in WDPA. Okay, that's basically all from the conceptual side. Now I'm going to show you the data model and also how to fill it out. First, some basic information on the setup of this data model and different information boxes. So you can see the data model here. Might look a little bit longer in your case. There might be more areas already inside, but that's the basic setup. We have different sheets. We have the FILMI sheet, protected areas, IUCN action types, stack purpose codes, IATI standards, FAQs, and changelog. For you, the most relevant sheet, because all of the information will be collected here, is the FILMI sheet. And then the other sheets are basically containing information on some of these columns to make the categorical choices. And also you have this FAQs here, which I recommend everybody to read because they already explain a lot of questions that might pop up in your head, but are hopefully reduced if you watch this video. Okay, we have different columns here. As said, some are mandatory, some are non-mandatory, also depending if your area is registered in WDPA. The model is made up of project metadata, location attribute data here in yellow, location geodata, and the social dimension in protected areas data. And basically, whenever you click on one of these boxes, you will get information about the data that you should enter here. Yeah, so we designed this to be kind of self-explanatory. You see what type of data is required here. In this case, it's text and a short description of what we would like to have here. And whether it is mandatory or non-mandatory is also again given in this information box. Okay, let's get started. So the first example will be how to update an existing protected area with WDPA registration. By existing, I mean that the area already exists in the list. This can be the case, for example, that the area was already included into the list in one of the previous years, and you would only need to update information here. I would suggest that the easiest way to start is that you filter this table for the project number that you're interested in. And then you might come up with one protected areas or several protected areas, depending on how many areas are supported by the specific project. In this case, we keep it very simple. It's only one area. And you will see, okay, there's already some information here. Not a lot, but what I will do now is I will update this information. So the first thing that I already see in this area is that it is registered in WDPA and we already have the ID. And that's great in that case because then I do not need to fill out all of these purple columns. But I'm going to fill out the black columns because I want to facilitate the work for others. And I also want to show you what these columns mean. So in that case, We have an abbreviation of the project name. It's already here given. It's BioTurtle, just a fantasy name in that case. And we have here the date of collection or latest update. So since I'm updating this data right now, I would probably change that. Today is the 12th of August 2024. The WDPA does not need to be updated. However, I could go to the website and also check whether the information on the website is more or less accurate and up to date. Location activity status means how far is the project already advanced. We have different categories here: pipeline, identification, implementation, finalization, and so on. Sometimes these boxes are very small. You can do different things. You can make the column wider a little bit, or you could also check these categories in the respective sheets. In that case, location activity status you will find in the YATI standards. Project activity status, you can see all of the categories here as well. So in my case, this project is already in implementation. We are already doing activities there, so I choose implementation. Next column is mandatory. It asks me to put the approximate planned or actual start date of the implementation of the activities there. So in my case, the activity started on the 1st of January 2024. And the next information column asks me to put the approximate end date of the activities at that location. And in my case, that will be the 31st of October 2026. Next column asks me to input an activity description. And for the activity description, we're using the so-called IUCN action types. And you can see those here. The action types are a standardized classification of activities in those areas. They are very short. And you can find more information also if you click on this link above. In my case, what we do in this protected area is we support the site and area management. So I will just copy that, paste it here. And maybe we are also engaging in species reintroduction. So I will copy this as well, paste it here, and separate it with a semicolon. Now, the additional activity description again is non-mandatory, but it will help us to understand what is really done here. So in this case, I will input some text. At this location, we are supporting the management by providing training courses on species management and the use of camera traps. And we are also financing infrastructure to help with programs for species reintroduction. Okay, the next column, again, in this case, is not obligatory because we have the WDPA ID. Next two are non-mandatory. Then we have the DAC5 purpose classification. So this is an international standard from the YATI standard again. We have the DAC purpose codes here. I will look it up. So in that case, I will choose the code 11110. It's education policy and administrative management. You might also find which DAC5 purpose code is supported by your project in the official project documentation, or ask your counterparts. Budget share, in this case, also non-mandatory, but since I have the information, I can input it here. Say it's 50,000 euros. Next column, we are already entering into the field of location data, is non-mandatory because I have the WDPA. The latitude and longitude I also do not need. This is only in case if I do not have any registration or geospatial information and I only know an approximate location. I will talk more about that later. In my case, there is no related community or village because we are not financing any activities with the local community there. And the next two columns I can skip as well. Now, the first mandatory column of the last section is if indigenous population or local communities live in a core protected area or close proximity. Again, this is a multiple choice. It's a little bit small, so I'm going to switch to the protected area standard sheet below. And here I can see all the information. I have different categories. In my case, no indigenous population and local population lives in a protected area or the surroundings. So this is the one that I would choose here. Next column asks me if there had been any settlements prior to or during the project. In my case, no. Next column asks if there was a free and prior informed consent made during or prior to the project. In my case, also not, because there are no local communities. The governance of the territory is not mandatory in my case, because I have the WDPA ID. The next column asks me if there is a grievance redress mechanism. And again, in my case, there is none. Because there is actually no indigenous population and local people there. And the last column asks me if there had been any known human rights violations prior or during the project. And in my case, the answer is also no. Okay, this is basically the step of updating an existing entry that has an WDPA ID. I will save the sheet, and that's it. Now, second case is that I want to update an existing entry without WDPA ID or registration, and I will show you how to do that now. Again, I'm going to start by filtering for my project number. You can see there is a project number here. There's also already a protected areas entry in my data table. In that case, I have very few information and no WDPA ID. So I will input the information manually. My project name is called Biocorridors in Phantasialand. And the first thing that I would actually now do would be to search if there is maybe already now an existing entry in the world database of protected areas. So I would catch the name of the location. Maybe I also have information in which country this is, so I can use this information as well. I would go to the protected areas website, and here I can basically just search for this protected area. In my case, no results. So unfortunate, but no problem at all because we can input the information manually. So in my case, the data which is provided here comes from the Ministry of the Environment of Phantasialand. And I have to input this information now because I don't have the ID. Next column asks me whether there are any publishing restrictions due to security reasons. In my case, no. You should put yes here if the area is in a conflict region and if the publication or use or distribution of this data would endanger people. Okay, I have no WDPA ID, so in that case I leave this field blank. And then I fill out the other fields just as I have shown you. I will make this quick now. I actually forgot to put here the last update, so I will also complete that just to make sure this information is up to date. IUCN action types, activity description. Again, I would switch here to the IUCN action types. I'm going to choose something now very quickly. Blah, blah, blah. Now I will have to fill out the location type. I can find the categories again here, or I can switch to the protected area standards sheet and I have the location types, the different existing location types here. These are the IUCN categories as you might know them. And then there's also location types like other effective area-based conservation measures, indigenous territories, and so on. So please check them. In my case, it's an OECM. So I'm going to choose that here. And then the next column is designation. Again, I can check up in the protected area standards. It's a little bit more comfortable maybe. And in my case, it's a Ramsar site. So I would choose that one. Again, here I have already checked the table and I will input some value. Now, let's suppose that I do have geographical information about this protected area, but it's just not in the WDPA. But it already has a registration and it's already delineated geographically. So in that case, I would choose here exact because it's already exactly delineated. These two I can skip for now, explain them to you later. There is no related community again, so I will skip that as well. And now I have to provide the polygon information or the area information in an extra KML file, and I will show you how to do that. In case that you have this information, you might already have some area. I created an example here. And you could send that to us. The only thing that we need to make sure is that we can link this area to the information in Excel. And this is very easy. What we do is that we provide the file name here, and we provide a primary key, which can be found also in the KML file. As for the file name, we ask you to put a file name which basically consists of the project number and an underscore project locations. I will show you how you can name the file. So let's say this is your existing protected areas data. Then I would just export it. In my case, I would export it as a KML. I would give it my project number. Underscore project locations. Okay, let's see where I can save this. Okay, let's just save it in downloads. Looks good. Let's go. Now, how do I link the data? So one thing that you should do now is to create a new field here. There are already some existing fields. You may also have internal information. For example, in my case, I have a column here which shows me the park manager. This internal information from your attribute table, you are free to delete. So in my case, I will delete this column. Especially you should delete these things if, for example, there is sensitive information about people or other things inside of the area. Okay. So delete field is now not working for the tutorial for some reasons. Maybe I check that up later. But normally I would delete this field. But since this doesn't work now, I would just show you how to add a new field. The new field should be called primary key. So I will call this primary key. And it will be a text string. And that's it. And since this is the first and only location that I'm going to input, I will now input the ID here. Just check very quickly. Okay, for some reasons it doesn't work in the save.kml file. So what I will do is I will work with the original file. Again, I will edit. Now I can delete my column with the park manager here. The name column I do not need to delete in this case. It's not really sensitive information. It can help us to identify the park if the primary key is not really unique. But I will enter the column primary key. Again, it's a text. And that's basically it. And the primary key, what you should do is name it also starting with your project number and then underscore, and then you just give it a number. So this is my first location, so I give it the 1. If I had a second, then I would give it the 2 and the 3 and the 4. They should be unique, of course. This primary key I can copy as well and already put it into my table. And then I would save this, stop editing and export it as a KML. Going back, now I can export it again. I will overwrite the one that I just created. And there it is. So this file you could send in addition to the Excel sheet, and then everything should be fine. As for the last columns, I'm not going to go through these in detail again, because we already did that in the previous example. I will just put here the governance of the territory, which is a value I didn't do before. In my case, it's a territory that is governed by a non-profit organization. And having filled out these columns here as well, then you are good to go. Okay, easy peasy. Now we are almost through. There is the case where you would like to add a new protected area to the list, and it has a WDPA registration, and I will show you how you can do this. Again, you would start filtering the list for your project number. Hopefully it's there. If it isn't, you are free to enter a very new entry with a new project number as well. But in most of the cases, at least the project number should be here already. Now I have a protected area. Let's say I already checked if it exists in WDPA. Okay, this is my area. I will copy the ID. And then I would basically just fill out the same information as before. I already showed you all of the columns, so I am going to skip this now as well. In the case you have the WDPA ID, you do not need to provide any additional geo information, so I will also not show that here right now. But it is the same principle, and in the end you should come up with this entry and information complete table here as well, of course. Now we have one very last case, which is that I want to add a new protected area without WDPA registration. So I checked, the area doesn't exist in WDPA. I filtered again for my project number. There is yet no protected area here. So let's say this is Nature and People in Orange Mountains project. And then I would start to fill out all of the required information. Now I will show you one case where I really do not have any boundaries yet of the protected area. So it is planned to support the creation of a protected area, but we don't have any spatial delineation yet. Yeah, we just know where it could be approximately. So in our case, we would choose for geographic exactness approximate yet unknown. And to give us a rough idea where the area will be, you can then just input latitude and longitude data here. So the coordinates of an approximate place. You can get this information, for example, from this website, EPSG.io. You can open a map here. In my case, I know that the area will be more or less here. And I get the latitude and longitude here. So I can just copy and paste it to my Excel sheet. And that's basically it. Again, I would fill out the rest of the information and then I'm good to go. Okay, that's basically it. Now, there could be also a case where, for example, you have already a project and you have already an area, but the area is supported by a new project that just started. In that case, you would just create the project number here if it doesn't exist yet, and then you can basically copy some of the information, for example, the WDPA ID. What you could not copy, of course, is the activity description, because this will most probably differ from project to project. If you have an area that is supported by several projects and already exists in the table, in theory, you could also search for it either by the location name or by the WDPA ID, and then create a new entry and copy some of this information. You're free to choose this table as it is most efficient to you. Okay, some final words. So there's a long list of FAQs that I just showed you in the Excel table, and they will help you very much to deepen your understanding of the process. So I would really recommend you to read them. They cover much more topics than the ones that I just covered, and they are written very intuitively. So if you go to the FAQs here and if you read them once, I think you're also good to go. There's also some kind of decision tree here, which can help you to understand the processes that I just explained to you. In case you have any questions regarding specific issues for your project or protected areas, then please get in contact with your project manager or partner in your peer organization in KfW and GIZ. And in case you have questions regarding general issues on this data model, you can contact us via GitHub. So you would first need to register in GitHub, then head over to this subsite of GitHub, click on issues and create a new public issue. And there you could precisely describe your problem, and then we would get in touch and try to respond to you as quickly as possible. Final word, we encourage all of our peers with the official mandate to update their protected areas information in WDPA and also to register new areas there. If the information is up to date here, it is available to the general public, so the whole conservation community can benefit from it, and it will facilitate your reporting to us. There is also a tutorial video which is linked in this presentation, which will be also made available online, so you can check out the tutorial video. It will also show you how to update information in the WDPA. And IUCN and the colleagues from UNEP also have a great support team for that. So thank you very much. And yeah, we will be very, very happy as soon as you fill out the data. It will be put to great use, not only for reporting, but also to help inform the general public about what we do in protected areas and what impacts we generate. And with that, hopefully, encourage the general public to support the conservation in all of our partner countries. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.